Welcome back to Dr. Proctor here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I am T. This is a show we do here on AM 1220 KHTS twice a month here on the first Thursday and third Thursday of the month. I want to remind you, you can find our segments at our website on the podcast, hometownstation.com, where you can also see the segments that we do on our YouTube channel. I invite you to do that. Various segments that are archived on various medical subjects. As the population ages, and we do have what's called the silver tsunami coming, there's no question of if, but it certainly is here, where we're also impacted with the Affordable Health Care Act. We have many more patients being able to see doctors and to see the medical support staff. And as a result, doctors are incredibly impacted, as are hospitals. And the more we can become our own best advocates to be able to go in when we really do need to see a doctor, the better it is. And this show is an opportunity to do that, to peek over the shoulders of the medical community and medical support staff so that we can learn more rather than turn to the internet, where a lot of times you'll have overwhelming or frightening information and a lot of times wrong. You have here a friend at your hometown station as we sit with the doctors and, again, their support staff to learn more about who they are and what they do. Today I'm talking with Dr. Michael Price. He's a regenerative orthopedic surgeon at the Roxbury Institute, located in Beverly Hills. You can learn more at theroxburyinstitute.com. And what we're discussing is Dr. Price has a book called STEMS, The Growing Revolution, and he's a double board certified orthopedic surgeon, also works in regenerative medicine. Again, Dr. Price, thank you so much for coming by today to talk to us about what it is you do. And I would love to learn a little bit more about cell therapies. What does this mean? How does it work? Educate me and my listener so that we can find out more about what this magical, sort of seemingly magical process is.
Once again, thanks for having me. Let me use the example of, let's say I walk out of this room and I go out and fall down and scrape my knee. Well, it's going to start bleeding. Well, the first thing that happens, as we all know from grade school, is platelets are going to come to that wound, and it's going to help it stop bleeding. But it's also going to inflame it. It's going to get red. I have to
stop you very quickly. You probably knew they were platelets in grade school because you graduated at 16. For me, it was a scab. Scab formed.
Well, scab, it's another name for some of the platelet products.
Platelets. I didn't know that in grade school, but go ahead.
Okay. So the wound gets very inflamed, very painful. It's red and it's almost hot in the first day or two.
Yes.
So that's the initial inflammatory process.
That response that the body says, something is wrong.
Right. Let's stop the bleeding. The next step that takes place, though, is they send signals through enzymes and proteins to the stem cells that still are circulating in the blood, sitting in fat, and sitting in bone. Those stem cells don't always necessarily go to that spot, but they send signals through the other cells to now come in and start healing the wound. And when it comes in to heal the wound, it calms it down. It's extremely anti-inflammatory. So the concept is, let's go get those anti-inflammatory products and some of the cells and put it in joints that are painful.
So you're actually recruiting them.
Right. So naturally you recruit them when you have a wound. You initially recruit the platelets and the scab, if you will, and that signals the stem cells that are in the body to send signals to other cells to go repair this spot. So that anti-inflammatory second stage of healing is what we want to grab that stage, somehow process it, put it in a painful joint, and try to make the joint feel better. Now, we don't make new cartilage grow. We don't make it a brand new knee.
And that was what the promises were back in the day when we were hearing it. It's like, oh, I'm going to make new cartilage. It's going to create this. It's going to repair nerve endings. These were a lot of the things we read.
Absolutely.
But it's still a good process, and it's still the cavalry coming in to save its own self.
Right. Well, some of the early treatments that were being falsely claimed were taking blood or trying to get some stem cells and just injecting those and saying, okay, we're going to grow new cartilage. Well, the idea is let's get not just the stem cells, but let's get some of their products, which fat is a fantastic thing for this.
I'm so happy now. I can love fat. Look at that.
See, it has a good thing. So we take those and we then inject it into the joints so they can throw down that anti-inflammatory effect and make it feel better. So this works really well as people age, and let's say someone's in their 50s or 60s, and they're starting to be told, hey, you might need a knee replacement.
Right. That's that is the battle cry. Hey, your knees are going. That's to be expected. You're wearing down. You can't expect that these joints, for all the work you've done. So that's not the first thing they're going to hear from you. Is like, I've got these knee issues that maybe we can do something before the radical knee replacement.
Absolutely. In fact, a replacement
is revolutionary for a lot of people.
That's the last thing they're going to hear from me. So a replacement is the last, because 50% of people who have joint replacements are not really happy.
No, they're not.
That's
and I know
the
some very
statistics.
tragic stories about knee replacements gone wrong. If something didn't heal proper or didn't fit right, or depending on where they went, and it can be a very catastrophic event. And it's revolutionary to think that here we are with a rapidly aging population that might not have to have that as their go-to immediately. And I love that you said that's one of the last things they're going to hear from you.
Correct. And I'm so fortunate to have teamed up with Dr. David Amron, who his specialty is taking fat out. And then my specialty is taking that fat, processing it, injecting into joints. So
you're like that candy when the chocolate met the peanut butter,
exactly.
And it was all of the perfect world.
That's true. So it's good because we can inform people of what we can do. Mm-hmm. Now, there are some other applications as well. As you can imagine, we start wondering, well, gosh, what else can we do?
What is currently? What are the applications that? I mean, you've gone to school. You've been part of this wonderful growing research, and seeing and I want to know what the long-term ideas, what the pie in the sky ideas are for this. What are the applications right now? You can use it in knees, you can use it in hips. What are the other things you're seeing at the Roxbury Institute you're doing?
Well, one of the other things that we're currently doing, and probably a lot of men out there will be happy to hear this, is we're drawing blood from people, spinning it down and taking some of the platelets or PRP and injecting men's scalps and regrowing hair.
Okay, now that's the first snake oil statement for throughout history. But you guys have actually proven this scientifically. You've seen it happen to where the cells decide to wake back up, and because it's sort of like they've gone fallow, like dormant. We're sleeping now. We don't need to make more hair.
Absolutely, I had it done on myself.
Yeah,
I let one of my partners do it, and I got some results. So,
you know what? That is that's a great testimony to not only you as a doctor, that you would go in and, the old, physician heal thyself, but to go in and say, you know what, yes, I want to try this.
And along those lines, my wife was a real trooper too, because she let me do liposuction on her and inject her knees. And she was back teaching spin within a few days.
And when I met her, that was something she had said, that the recovery, because I said that the first question I had was, well, what was the recovery time on that? And she said, absolutely, nearly nothing, that she was feeling great the next day.
And T, you might be happy to hear this, but what we often tell people is we want you to go eat a lot of food. A lot of good food, that is.
Right.
Because we want you to get your
Gotta
fat,
build up
get the fat cells nice and plump, and because they store nutrients, right?
Sure.
Like if you see somebody who's really sick in the hospital or they're almost about to die, what's the first thing that you notice is they've lost tremendous amount of weight.
From everywhere, and then temporal wasting, even in the areas you don't see, where you see everything start to have cavities. That's what they do, is they lose that weight.
Right, and that's because the fat that had all these energy reserves and
Mm-hmm.
anti-inflammatory reserve are being called upon to try to heal that person, even though they're going the wrong way.
Right.
So it just shows you the incredible power of fat when correctly used. Yes, we inject frequently joints, and we have people who did give testimonials of we couldn't walk around the block. Now we can walk 2 miles. Because we had some liposuction and our joints injected. So the results are really good. And we're sticking to what the FDA is approving, and we work closely with them. We don't want to violate what their guidelines are.
And again, the scientific evidence showing what it's capable of doing. To make false claims, everybody knows you're going to get in trouble with that. But the idea that they are saying, yes, we've seen it, we have the anecdotal stories, and we have the evidence. What, as far as you've seen with your research, and again, we're talking with Dr. Michael Price. He's the author of STEMS, The Growing Revolution, where he is a regenerative orthopedic surgeon who is down at the Roxbury Institute. You can learn more at the roxburyinstitute.com. Now, you've written the book. You know what your current applications are. You're continuing to study, as I see in the book. What do you see from your research, and not just current, but what you've already studied and what you're continuing to see? What do you imagine, or what are some of the thoughts from the medical community on what exactly stem cell research or regenerative medicine, if you will, is bringing to us?
Well, I'm very excited that you asked that question, and because my own mother suffers from Alzheimer's very badly, I'm very interested in that subject, and research is underway, and we will be participating in some of that research clinically, that we're going to start using stem cells along the same lines. We're going to go find areas in the neurologic system that are working, try to get products from those areas, infuse them to try to decrease brain inflammation and prevent the production of amyloid, which is one of the structures that it's like a rubber that forms in the brain of Alzheimer's.
Sticky towel that what gets in, starts to cover everything and
Yes.
makes everything stop working.
Right, and it's very inflamed. So again, stem cells and their products have a very anti-inflammatory effect, as long as you go get the latter part of that effect. So that's where a lot of work's being done now. There's already been some clinical trials started for not just Alzheimer's, but just generalized dementia. So that's probably the most exciting area of research that is going to come into fruition, and there's already some clinical research underway.
That's really remarkable. One of the questions I have, it is a buzzword right now. You hear that if you were to do an SEO search on the computer, anti-inflammatory is a real buzzword in the medical community and in the zeitgeist at large right now about the body, how we eat. Does it trigger a inflammatory response? And we are seeing through research that cancer and certain diseases, there is that inflammatory response, and there's a lot of talk about anti-inflammatory response being the way to treat the body, to help the body help itself. Do you have as a physician thoughts on other areas outside of that since that is such a buzzword right now, as far as us and our well-being? Someone listening right now thinking, how can I lower some of that? Do you have thoughts on that?
Yes, T, is so important what you just pointed out. Everyone can start tomorrow morning, and it begins. All health plans and health improvements start with diet. I want everyone to look up on Google anti-inflammatory diet, and your life will start changing tomorrow morning, because the foods you eat and what you drink or don't drink will help decrease inflammation in the entire body. And inflammation is the beginning of the end of a lot of organ systems, including the brain, joints, and abdomen and GI tract. So that can begin tomorrow with a diet. Obviously, if somebody's really hurting bad and they want to take an ibuprofen or a Motrin, those are anti-inflammatories. They have their uses, but they shouldn't.
You have to be careful, because with the good comes the bad.
Absolutely, because then you irritate your stomach or GI tract. So they have to be used very sparingly and carefully.
Well, if we had someone, let's say someone's listening and it's like, all right, I'll make this change starting today. The next meal, plan out a next meal for someone.
Right. So tomorrow morning, instead of citrusy juices, how about some water, some yogurt, blueberries. For starters, stay away from simple sugars, and I have a little rule on and the FDA has actually helped us wonderfully on this. Anything you pick up in the grocery store, you need to do the 180 spin. You got to look and make sure there's no saturated fats, no trans fats. That's the number one rule. Second is try to eliminate simple sugars, so eliminate breads or at least minimize it. But those things can start tomorrow with breakfast. Lunch can follow the same route. And, I hate to admit it, but to a lot of people out there, but alcohol, when you take alcohol, it immediately shuts down your body's metabolism of fat. It starts metabolizing the alcohol, and the fat is not getting metabolized. So, and
anything else you put in it negates the good properties of everything else.
Yeah, so moderation, of course. A little bit in moderation. There is some research that shows maybe a drink with a meal in the evening can be good. But a lot of it, and you got a lot of bad going on. So really, it's very simple. And with the diet thing, there's so many good articles and information online under anti-inflammatory diets.
It's a good way to begin.
The life changes tomorrow.
If you had your 3 top favorite powerful foods, or it could be food or beverage, what would be the 3 things, or one of 3 things?
Well, I would say broccoli. It's probably the world's one of the best foods.
It's my favorite food.
Yogurts, blueberries, nuts. Walnuts are great. Those are probably the best nuts to eat.
Yeah.
And different kinds of nuts. Try to stay away from if they're too salted.
Right.
So those things right there, those are my favorite.
And water.
And water. Water is anti-inflammatory.
One of the best things you could do, because you've heard that before, where they say it helps to flush. So as much as you like to see patients because you like to help people, if you could possibly minimize some of your patient load, that would be helpful by getting people to eat right, take care of themselves.
Right.
One of the other things I'm a big advocate of, and I tell the listener all the time, to be your own best health advocate too, is I'm a big fan of journaling. When it comes to knowing what you really put in your mouth, or what you're really, your workload or your exercise load is, when you write it down, you get a much more objective view of who you are and what you do. And I always feel like that helps your physician when they can come into you and they say, okay, this is who I am, and to give a little more information so you can help treat them. And diet certainly is a big part of that.
T, you're so right. In fact, most nutritionists will say the very first step is write down everything that goes in your mouth for the next 4 days, and then let's get back together and talk.
Right. It's more objective, because you might forget, I was at so-and-so's house and I tasted such and such, or I put, someone gave me a candy, or I mindlessly grabbed something at work because I was hungry. I forgot that was in the break room. It is very important that you be your own best physician before you ever have the opportunity to go in, for example, your office.
Absolutely. And those anti-inflammatory diets, they take about 6 weeks to really take effect.
Really?
Right. So if someone starts tomorrow, you're really not going to see the huge result until about 6 weeks. But after 6 weeks, you're going to feel like a different person if you stick to it.
I mean, we're talking about someone coming to you, again, for regenerative medicine, coming in and taking care of as a regenerative orthopedic surgeon. When you have a patient coming to you, if they can come to you in their most optimum health, wouldn't that also benefit what treatment you're about to give them if they're at their best?
Absolutely. And in fact, when they do come in, and I appreciate the opportunity for me to show you the book, but I wrote the book is basically a conversation between me and a patient over an hour. So I put everything in there that I tell them. So if somebody comes in, I tell them all these things, and I say, listen, if you're not doing these, go for 6 weeks,
Right.
do these things, then let's take your fat and inject your joint if you're still hurting. But we don't try to push it on people. We just kind of inform them, and if they come in, we move through those steps.
That's wonderful. I love that you wrote the book, and it's almost a lot of times when we do go to the doctor, we have a tendency to, okay, yes, I'm listening, and we nod, and every now and then we walk out the door and think, I think I retained 15% of whatever he just told me. So how nice of you to write a book after you've told us something, to hand it to us as we walk out the door. Oh, here's everything you basically just said to me. We're talking with Dr. Michael Price. He is a regenerative orthopedic surgeon at the Roxbury Institute over in Beverly Hills. You can learn more at the roxburyinstitute.com. We also encourage you to perhaps pick up his book on Amazon.com, STEMS, The Growing Revolution. If you've heard about STEM stem cell research and you've heard all the claims once upon a time, this is an opportunity to find out what it really and truly can do for you or the patient that you love who needs assistance. You're listening to Dr. Proctor here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. You can catch all of our podcasts, our past episodes, and including today's at hometownstation.com, where you can hear the podcast and also find the segment on YouTube. We'll be back after these messages. This is Dr. Proctor here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. I am T. We are here twice a month on the first and third Thursday of every month here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. And we also encourage you to find past segments at hometownstation.com on podcast, or also the segments on our YouTube channel. I'm here today talking to Dr. Michael Price from the Roxbury Institute, regenerative orthopedic surgeon who at the Roxbury Institute, you can learn more at theroxburyinstitute.com. At the Roxbury Institute, they're doing a lot of wonderful work with regenerative medicine where we're helping the body help the body. So again, thank you, Dr. Price, for being here. And tell me a little bit, again, very quickly, the process is you remove the fat from the patient's own body, you spin it down in the centrifuge, clean it up, do what you need to do, you re-inject it into either the knee or the hip, and tell me where you're seeing great success or across the board what kind of patients you're seeing.
T, thank you. Yes, we're seeing the best results on joints in the lower extremities because, of course, those are the joints that you're bearing weight on when you walk or stand. So hips, knees, and ankles, we're seeing great results. We are doing some liposuction to remove a small amount of fat. We talk to you and see how you're doing and talk about your family while we're doing the liposuction. It's a very simple procedure. We take the fat, we clean it, we very minimally manipulate it so we don't violate its 3D structure, and then we inject it in the painful joint. And typically, most patients will get up 10 or 15 minutes later and walk to their car and drive home. So it's a very simple procedure, but very complex concepts behind it. So we're very happy that we're able to offer these cell therapies and help people help themselves, just as you stated, make themselves feel better.
And long-term results, it's been very successful.
Yes, the results have been going 1 to 2 years. And the reality is we don't have more than 8 or 10 year results yet to even look at.
It's a relatively new process.
Correct.
But the scientific evidence is there, the research has been done, and this is something that is helping patients. It's an incredibly exciting time to be alive. It's also, in some regards, an incredibly painful time to be alive because as we age and things start to hurt, but thank goodness we have someone like you, Dr. Price, at the Roxbury Institute that we can come to take care of those load-bearing areas that need to be taken care of. Very exciting opportunities. It sounds like if you'd like to learn more, theroxburyinstitute.com. Again, I've been talking with Dr. Michael Price, regenerative orthopedic surgeon, also the author of STEMS, The Growing Revolution. If you go see the doctor at his office, you'll get a copy of the book. You can also get a copy beforehand at Amazon.com. You've been listening to Dr. Proctor here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.